up there, and those 3 up there. So I know, that's why all I can do is put mine up there. Right? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Maria's out there in the crowd somewhere. Some were. Yeah, go for it, right?
Hello everyone, welcome to Edward Little. My name is Jake Bazinet. I am the student representative for the Auburn School Committee. We are honored here tonight to host this event to help inform our citizens on the important topic of tax reform. I'd now like to introduce our mayor, Mayor Jonathan Levante, who will now introduce Governor LePage.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Edward Little High School here in Auburn, and welcome to Lewis and Auburn. It's a privilege and an honor to have a chance in my hometown to introduce Governor LePage and welcome him back to his hometown here in the Twin Cities. Tonight is an opportunity for us to hear about the governor's bold and comprehensive tax reform package in his budget. I'm excited about the opportunity here for the city of Auburn and for Lewiston when we travel around our community and look at opportunities for economic growth and helping to grow our community and increase wages. We need to have some change. That's one of the reasons I certainly ran for mayor. I've been fortunate for about 9 months now to be able to work directly with the governor as his director of his Office of Policy and Management. And what I've been able to see is significant reforms around the state's finances over the last 4 years. And this budget is a continuation of that. When the governor came into office, unfunded promises within the state budget were at about $1.2 billion, things that were in state law that couldn't be funded. The governor was able to reduce that in his first term by $800 million. The governor worked with others, including the state treasurer and the legislature, to reduce our unfunded pension liabilities by another more than $1.5 billion with a B. And of course, here in Lewis and Auburn with St. Mary's and Central Maine Medical Center, we saw the hospital debt paid off, which statewide was almost $750 million. So significant work was done in terms of restructuring the finances of the state. And I'm excited that the governor is becoming much more aggressive trying to tackle the structural issues around the state's economy and taking that message out to communities like Auburn. So it's a privilege to introduce to all of you Governor Paul LePage.
Can everyone please rise and remove your hats for the national anthem sung by our junior book leader.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's so seaweed hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we'd watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance Thank you. Now, before I hand the mic off, I hope that it is noted that Edward Little gets extra points towards a new school for hosting tonight's event.
Good evening, all. What I want to talk to you about tonight is our current budget proposal to the legislature and tell you why we are doing this, and then I'll open it up for questions, and I'd like to be as brief as I can, but I would like to answer most of your questions that you have. First of all, Maine as a state has not been competitive in New England nor the nation for many, many years. We have had one thought process, and we've been working in status quo for close to 40 years. Our tax structure is an issue, our energy costs are an issue, and we're the oldest state in America. To give you an idea about how old a state we are, the median age of Maine is over 44 years. The youngest state in America is Utah, and the age is, they're trying to reach 29. So it's a fairly significant difference. Our young people leave the state. When kids go out of state to go to school, and they go around the country to get educated, only 30% come back. 70% stay away. Retirees, when they reach the age of retirement, if they have a nest egg and they want to protect it, they go to one of the 9 states that don't have an income tax. And job creators go where they're welcome and stay where they're appreciated. How they measure the appreciation of a state is simply how they're treated. Those are very important aspects. Our budget is going to cut the tax burden. This budget is going to cut the tax burden to the folks in Maine by $300 million. It makes Maine more competitive around New England. It makes our companies more competitive nationally and internationally. What I mean by that is the Tax Foundation estimates that we would go from the 33rd highest lowest tax state to to 23rd with the income tax. This is just this budget. My goal is not just this budget. My goal is to pass a constitutional amendment in 2016 that will require the state to eliminate the income tax forever. From a corporate standpoint, we are looking to reduce the top rate from 8.93% down to 6.75%. That would make us take us from being the 45th highest tax state for corporations down to 17. So it's a major improvement. Frankly, we need to get down to about the top 10 over time if we really want to be on the top of the pile, because they look at about 10 states before they make a decision. And they usually start with the best ones, the lowest tax ones, and work their way up. That's one of the characteristics that they look at. It's not everything, but it's certainly one of them. I believe this will drive prosperity. To give you an example, state of Maine in 2008 was 35th in the country on per capita income. We've got it down to 28 until last year. Then last year we took a little bump. There are 3 states that went ahead of us that were behind us. Louisiana, Oklahoma, because they reduced their income tax, and Ohio. And frankly, I just did this afternoon, so I'll get you that answer next week. I'm going to research why they dropped. Because I know that they have a big tax increase coming this year, so I hope that they drop back again. This program, this budget, if passed with our recommendations, will have lowered the income tax in the state of Maine by 40% since I've been governor. The whole purpose of my budget is to make Maine more prosperous and to give the Maine worker the largest wage increase since the 1960s. This will propel, this is better than any minimum wage you can talk about. This will propel the economy for decades. And what I mean by that is when you talk minimum wage, you're not talking about those people on fixed incomes. They get hurt. In this budget, everybody who pays income tax will reduce their income tax. It's deflationary, not inflationary. Whereas an increase in wages based on the minimum wage is an inflationary aspect. It means it's just going to be spread around and sent back to those who buy goods and services. So what we're doing here? First thing we're going to do is reduce the individual income tax. Eliminate the estate tax. Now, when I said earlier, a lot of people leave the state for 2 reasons. One is to protect what they have in their retirements, but more importantly, a lot of people sell their assets and take them out of state to protect them against the inevitable, which is death. If you die in Maine, as your governor, you're going to send me some money. If you die in Florida, they just bury you. And they don't take your money. It's that simple. We are going to cut the pensions, the income tax on all pensions immediately. That means that we're going to work it in so that we're going to max out at $35,000. This plan is going to add $5,000 a year until your pensions are at $35,000 before you start paying income tax. But if we pass the constitutional amendment, that will take effect before we get to $35,000. So keep your eye on that whole item, because that's the important piece. We eliminate income tax on military pensions immediately. The reason we're doing that and we're not staging that out is because the war in Afghanistan and Iraq is coming to an end. Many soldiers are coming home, and the federal government will be downsizing the military this year and next year. And by downsizing, obviously a lot of people are going to get retirement. They're going to be in their late 30s, early 40s, they're going to be retiring. I want to get those people to Maine because they have a chance to get a second job, a second career, and they can invest in Maine to create a better business environment. So if you don't tax their pension, they can live on the pension while they're building a business or a second career. And that's really the direction I'd like to go. We need to modernize the sales tax. It's not all good news. We need to modernize the sales tax, which means we're going to increase the sales tax from 5.5 to 6.5, and we're going to broaden it. But the good news about that is this. The population of Maine is 1.3 million people. The 1.3 million people pay income tax to the state of Maine in the form of tax returns, which there's 653,000 tax returns by Mainers to the state of Maine. And you pay $1.5 billion to our state. Thank you very much. The tourists that come to the state of Maine this year exceeded, 2014, this past year, exceeded 32 million people. So instead of 1.3 million people paying to run the state, I want to increase the sales tax a little bit and go after people who visit the state of Maine. I think they enjoy Maine at its most beautiful time in the summer, while the rest of us are still working. And we're waiting on them. So I think they ought to pay us a little bit for coming to visit. We want to simplify the tax code. So by getting rid of the income tax, you don't have to have adjustments and credits and all that. It's simply the only people that have to file. It's a one sheet, and it's going to say how much did you make in the course of the year, so that we can calculate what your fairness tax credit will be against your real estate and your sales tax rebate. Because for low income, they're going to get a sales tax rebate, and if they own property, they're going to get a fairness tax credit. So instead of paying in, we're going to be sending you money. That's how we're designing this. Now, there's been a whole lot of talk around the state, and everybody complains about revenue sharing. The revenue sharing is monies that goes to communities so they don't have to raise the income tax, property tax. What we're going to do is we're increasing the homestead exemption for people over 65 who own real estate, and we're going to have a tax credit, a fairness tax credit for people who have a home but they're low income, to help them keep their home. The whole purpose of revenue sharing was to help the community so the taxes wouldn't go up. The taxes have gone up over twice the speed of inflation over the last 2 decades. So what we're going to do, instead of calling it revenue sharing, we're going to be calling it a fairness tax credit to individual property owners and taxpayers. So the state's going to send the revenue sharing directly to the individual rather than to the community. And this is why. Community officials, with the exception of the mayor of Auburn, since he's here and he's younger than I am, most community officials, elected officials, are very concerned about their communities. And the Maine Municipal Association is concerned, or they say they're concerned about the communities. The governor of the state of Maine is concerned about the people who live in those communities. And I say that sincerely. I'm concerned about the residents and the citizens of the state of Maine. is no reason that the people in the state of Maine cannot keep the money they earn. There's no reason for an income tax. 9 other states are doing it. And they'll say to you, well, rural states can't afford to do it. Well, let me give you one state, for example. One of the highest per capita incomes in the country. They're in the top 10. State of Wyoming. State of Wyoming is twice the size of Maine with half the population. They don't have an income tax. State of Alaska, which is a tundra, very cold and very costly to live in, have no income tax. They got oil. Sure, they got oil. You know, what do you think the most valuable asset in the world today is? You got it. And we have a real abundance of it. In fact, I'm working right now trying to figure out a way that we can't barge clean water to drought states and charge it. And I'm going to tell Texas, you sell me gas at $2.75 and I'll sell you water at $2.75 a gallon. And I bet they pay for my water faster than I'll pay for their gas. But I think we have assets. Right now, for instance, we have $1 billion gold vein in Aroostook County that I've been trying to mine for 4 years, but the environmentalists won't let us. One of the poorest counties in Maine, and they could be one of the most prosperous, but we can't get people who live in Portland to allow us to do it. So, I think we got to be honest to each other. I think we got to find the balance between a good stewardship of our environment and good jobs for Mainers. The property tax fairness credit is going to be tripled. In other words, right now, the revenue sharing is about $62 million. This year, we're going to put in $34 million to revenue sharing and the property tax credit. Next year, we reduce the money that goes into revenue sharing will go directly into the property share fairness credit. And in the third year, we're going to add another $30 million to the property tax fairness credit. So what we're trying to say is we are going to take care of the people low income and people that are in fixed incomes and have property and want to live in their homes. We're going to fix their property taxes to the percentage of their fixed income, so that if you have a home and you have a luxury home and you pay high taxes, you're actually going to get a major tax cut. It's the way the formula is going to work. The homestead exemption is going to be increased from $10,000 to $20,000. And basically, once we pass the constitutional amendment to eliminate the income tax, we're going to be returning $1.3 billion to 1.3 million people. There will be no income tax. People that pay, that work, will not have an income tax. And finally, I'm going to close with this. The reason that we are doing this is very simply this. There are currently 9 states without an income tax. There are 19 states that this year, in their capitals, they're debating either to cut or lower the income tax. Cut or eliminate the income tax. I mentioned Oklahoma. Oklahoma was ahead of us. They were lowered to 4% last year from 7 to 4. They're going to eliminate it. The reason that is happening is because the federal government is in very severe debt. We realize that. many of the governors realize that it's going to take the states to prop up the federal government. And if the states are not in fiscally good shape, we're going to be in the same shape as the federal government. This year alone, this biennial, this next 2 years, monies from the federal government is down by $450 million. Our Medicaid, everybody wanted to expand Medicaid. We've managed not to. Next July 1st, we're going from 61% to 59%. 4 years ago, when I became your governor, the Medicaid reimbursement in Maine was 68%. It goes down every year between 1.7, 1% to 1.7 a year. 40 years ago now, when Canada went to socialized medicine, the whole concept was the federal government would pay 90% and the provinces would pay 10%. So the Premier of Quebec just told me recently that they are now down to 50-50. 50% federal, 50% provincial. Quebec province has 7 million people. Their share of social medicine in Canada is $34 billion a year. So on 7 million people, it's pushing $70 billion a year. That's going to happen here. Whether you like it or not, we owe $18 trillion. Not with a B, with a T, trillion. And my concern is this young lady right in front of me will never have the standard of living, or this young man right here will never have the opportunity to have the standard of living that I've been so fortunate to experience here in Maine. Because the federal government is so much in debt that as soon as we start seeing interest rates go up, the federal government will be pushing less and less money to the states. Because right now they're borrowing at near zero. Just think of the days, many of you weren't around, but think back at Jimmy Carter when he was president, and we had interest rate that peaked out at 21%. So that may happen someday. So with that, I see a few nods. So I'm not the oldest guy in the building. So I will leave it at that, and I'll answer your questions the best that I can, and if I can't, we'll get you an email and we'll get you an answer.
Thank you very much, Governor. Well, you're so good that I've been looking for questions and you've already answered several of them.
Good.
So, good job. But we will start out with Eileen Heydrich. Where are you? Where are you from, Eileen?
Turner. I live in Turner. So, Governor, I think your idea is a great idea. I would love to not have an income tax. I don't mind paying more sales tax because I feel it really levels the playing field. My concern is that at some point they're going to say, we can raise the